day the right way. It's Marv and Rauh in the morning.
Yes, it's Marv and Rauh in the morning. Wake up, ready from hot takes. They start right here, your daily morning show. Everything you need for the sports. It's right here. Christian Rauh, Nick Marovets here. Welcome on in. This is going to be a very fun Wednesday episode. I'm excited for it. We're going to talk a little baseball, college football, of course, NFL MVP conversation. And then I don't know if you saw it, but the Jimmy V Classic last night was absolutely electric. We got a lot to talk about in this power hour right here on Marv and Rauh in the morning. So if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, welcome on in to the jungle. Nick, I mean, let's just get going here. But how was your night of sports watching? I truly enjoyed it.
I mean, the Jimmy V Classic delivered big time. I cannot wait to get to that segment. It's coming down the road. But yeah, if you guys haven't already, hit subscribe because we're here every single morning. This is the best way to start your day, if you ask me, but I guess I'm a little biased. What do we got up first here, Christian?
Yeah, let's dig right into it. We're starting off with some major MLB news as winter meetings are getting going in Orlando, Florida. Kyle Schwarber returns to the Philadelphia Phillies on a long-term deal, 5 years, $150 million. He had some options to go other places, but he decides to stick with the Phillies. And to me, this is interesting because, of course, getting 96 wins last year, getting to the playoffs and losing to the Dodgers, a lot of people thought that maybe they were going to blow it up and maybe do a little bit of a rebuild inside it, if you want to consider it a rebuild. But with Schwarber back, with they still having Harper, with some question marks with maybe the rotation, there's a lot of good stuff about this one. I really like bringing back Kyle Schwarber here.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely candid with our viewers, okay? I am not, as of right now, the biggest baseball watcher, all right? I will get better at this, but looking at what this deal is right now, what the situation is with these Phillies, just as a big NFL guy, college football, maybe mixing a little basketball, like some NBA, this looks to me like the Phillies are trying to extend their championship window. Like, this is the guy that they're willing to settle in with. They've seen enough. They've seen the talent. And they're like, all right, here's a ton of money. We're just going to hope that you can get it done for us. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to make you a baseball fan. Don't worry. So you get to watch the evolution of Nick becoming a baseball fan on this show. It's going to happen because we are going to have some great conversations here. But no, this is exactly true. This continues their window, and really they have a strong window with Bryce Harper still being around, with the pitching staff that they do have. Although I don't really like the back of their bullpen or back of their rotation at the moment. Taijuan Walker is on a terrible deal. We'll see what Andrew Painter can do. There's going to be a couple players right now. Obviously, there's still a couple months left before spring training. We're still in the middle of winter meetings. But right now, there's a couple teams or a couple players in the Phillies that are going to potentially be starting the season with no service time. They're going to be rookies. And that's not always a terrible thing when you have that. Of course, you get to see the future in front of you. But, are you happy with saying that Justin Crawford's going to be your starting center fielder for the future of 2026 and beyond? I don't know if they're ready to say that yet. Are they ready to keep around Nick Castellanos after making a huge blockbuster signing of bringing back Kyle Schwarber on a big deal? They found a way to bring him back while other teams gave him about the same contract or very close to it. The Baltimore Orioles matched this deal with Kyle Schwarber. They matched him 5 years, $150. The Cincinnati Reds gave him 5-year deal as well, but at $125. And then the Pittsburgh Pirates, of all teams, gave him a 4-year deal at $120. The Pirates never are in the news for spending money. It sounds like maybe they're going to try and surround Paul Skeens for something eventually. The Reds, what we're hearing about the Reds contract is the fact that he is a local kid. He's from Bloomington, Indiana. They wanted to get him closer to Cincinnati. They thought he could sell tickets. That's the reason why they gave him a contract offer. Now, apparently, the Reds are not going to do anything the rest of the way. They're going to just be the Reds. So that's interesting. You'll know very soon what being the Reds means if you are just learning to be a baseball fan. But overall, he decides to stay with Phillies. He decides to extend the window of being a potential championship team. You still got to find a way to get past those Dodgers, though. Shohei Ohtani, they've been doing a lot of things. Those Dodgers are a crazy dynasty right now.
Yeah, there's not very many things that you don't, or that as you're kind of learning this baseball thing. There's a select few things. One, Shohei Ohtani is simply unbelievable. It's hard to imagine how good he is at baseball, excuse me. And the Reds are the Reds. Somehow I actually do know that. So that's hilarious that the Reds are they swung, they missed, and then they said, all right, well, I'm not getting back up to the plate. Somebody else go up there. I'm done for the season. And I do have a question because baseball's pay structure is so different from anyone else with basically the ability to spend unlimited money. Is this move, this 5 for 150, was that 30 million or roughly 30 million a year? Is that like there's no like this is too expensive? There's no overpaying in baseball because they can just pay the luxury tax or whatever. Philly fans are upset that they were like stretching or reaching to keep Kyle Schwarber. I have no reference of because like when let's say for example, the Patriots spend 800 million on a player. Well, now we don't have any other money. Like this is it. Like we just spent everything we have on one player. Football is a team sport. Does baseball work kind of the same way? Is there an element of like, hey, maybe we should have held off a little bit or maybe not for a guy like Kyle Schwarber? What's the situation with the money side of this?
It's definitely different, but there's still people who complain about it. There's definitely people who are still like, this is too much money. Why are you doing this for a DH? This is why I think now the greatest DH contract of all time, at least largest wise. And then you're looking at the future, like holding on to bad contracts. The Phillies are loaded with bad contracts right now. We mentioned Taijuan Walker being one. You could make the argument that Trey Turner might be on a bad contract. You can make the argument that Nick Castellanos is on a bad contract. And then you're adding a 5-year $150 million contract to a guy like who is a 32-year-old Kyle Schwarber. There's a good rule of thumb that goes around the world of baseball. If you look into the advanced data fields, that usually players after the age 31 season start to slow down in some of the advanced data with swing speeds, things like that. So you're signing him to a 5-year deal at age 32 when he's about to enter his 12th season. That's definitely a risk. There's no doubt about that. So, but either way,
like
he played all 162 games last year. He had his best season ever, hitting 56 home runs last year. He had 132 RBIs last year. I mean, all of those led the National League in games played, in home runs and RBIs. He's doing that as a 31, now 32-year-old DH. And the fact that he doesn't have to play the field and he's just worried about, swinging the bat and hopefully putting out 50-plus dingers for the Phillies, that's very important. But no, when it comes to the salary cap and the lack of salary cap, luxury tax, and the money like that, obviously people pay attention to it. You don't want to be sitting in a potential spot where you're stuck at the MLB trade deadline in the middle of the season because you don't want to either surpass the luxury tax or just make it even worse for your owners. There might not be a for say salary cap, Nick, but these owners are super stingy. We just talked about the Reds. We just talked about the Pirates. They're super stingy when it comes to this. If anything, we need more of a salary floor. This isn't a Phillies problem. We need more of a salary floor than a salary cap in baseball.
Interesting. Okay, so the Kyle Schwarber situation seems like a good signing. I could see the reality where, the 31 mark isn't as cut and dry because he's not doing both the field and the batting. Brian reminds me of, we talked about it this week, Phillip Rivers, right? 44, just turned 44, coming into bat for the Colts. We're not talking football right now, but the fact that he just said, screw it, I'll wait another 5 years to be in the Hall of Fame is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, that's how I'm looking at this as a football fan. This could be something that helps the Reds. I think they've got, or the Phillies, I think they have a guy, might as well keep him around 56 runs last year, 56 home runs. I mean, that feels like 56 points to me.
Yeah, it's even more than that because of the RBIs. I mean, True. 132 RBIs. 32. That's the big deal there for sure. What I see from Schwarber here is that, his 5-year deal, if he continues on the same trajectory he potentially could get his 500th career home run in a Phillies uniform. And if you're a Phillies fan, if you're somebody who has watched Schwarber for his entire career when he was on the 2016 World Series with the Cubs, watching him be what he's turned into has been really impressive. And after seeing him even win the World Series with the Cubs, after seeing him in the outfield for a couple of years at the beginning of his season, I didn't think he'd pan out. I didn't think his bat would be enough for him to be a player that stayed in the league for more than 10 years. The fact that there's a possibility that he might be a 500 home run leader by the end of his career is absolutely insane. So yeah, lots more to talk about for baseball. Don't worry, I'll get you I'll get you ready, man. You have nothing to worry about when it comes to that. Let's swing over to more of your neck of the woods, though, and let's get into the NFL. The front runner of the MVP for the NFL this season, honestly, it's so interesting to me. And I don't think you could have said any of the front runners. I think there are a few, and we're going to talk about some interesting kind of narratives moving in here. I think there are a few front runners for the NFL MVP. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that these 4 players might be the front runners, I would have said you're crazy. Matt Stafford, and the possibility of being an MVP front runner, with the conversation of him chasing Father Time, with him chasing the back injuries, with all the stuff where now there's more of the rumors out there that maybe potentially he's a clone of Matt Stafford, not actually Matt Stafford. On the flip side, you have the young gun and Drake May, who didn't really show a lot of promise last year with the old coaching regime, enter Vrabel. And that completely changes. Add a couple weapons around him, that completely changes. They've turned the New England Patriots back into, dare I say, potentially back to the dynasty ways of the Patriots. And he's right in conversation for MVP. I want to get to the other 2 in just a minute, but if I would have told you those were the front runners for MVP this year, if I would have told you this in August, you would have said what?
I mean, I would have said you're wrong. The Patriots and Drake May's success as a Patriots fan is refreshing. It's great, but I did not think it was going to happen this fast. I remember the conversation of how many games the Patriots were favored in to start the season, and it was a big jump. I think they jumped to like 7 or 8. I could be wrong on that number, but they were favored in a lot more games this season than last. And even in that conversation, people were saying, well, they're wrong about that. The Patriots are going to come up short. Like, they just don't have what it takes right now. Well, they kind of do. They kind of have whatever it is that what the first dynasty had. I'm not getting too far ahead of myself here, but look out for 6 Super Bowls in the next 20 years from the Patriots. I am super excited about what this Patriots team is about. And Drake May seems to be the real deal. As far as Matt Stafford, I'm not going to say anything about like his age, but I definitely had thoughts of like, it might be time to hang him up. Like, he's struggling with injury. The Rams weren't where they were a few years ago. I was happy to see him come back because selfishly, like, there's not a whole lot of guys left from that generation. Tom Brady's out, Drew Brees is out, Peyton Manning is out, all those kinds of guys. Matt Stafford sticking around, all of a sudden turns it all around. I mean, makes Puka Nacua look like maybe the greatest receiver of all time. This Rams team is very much in the conversation with the Super Bowl this year. I cannot believe, like, both of those feel so improbable to me that that's what makes the NFL so electric.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I agree with everything you just said. I'll say the age thing. I'm not afraid. Maybe it's because I'm closer to Stafford's age than you. I mean, we just talked about the Phillip Rivers conversation last night, and there was a tweet, a graphic that came up talking about him playing college football in 2000s. You weren't even born yet, and that was insane to me. But Matt Stafford, 35 touchdowns right now, leading the entire league in touchdowns at 35 touchdown passes. He's 4th in passing. And you're right. He's putting the Rams right back on the map. That NFC West is so tough right now with them and the Seahawks. And you could even put the Niners in the conversation as they limp their way through a potential playoff spot. It's an incredible division. And Stafford continues to show that, hey, it doesn't matter how old I am. Right. We just talked about Kyle Schwarber being 32. Matt Stafford's 37 years old. He's not the glorious 44-year-old Phillip Rivers coming in after running the sequel of Cheaper by the Dozen and saying, you know what, maybe I'll play a little bit of foosball this year. Maybe I'll do that. No, Matt Stafford, though, is sitting around and playing every single one of these games and is impressive. He's not doing it just getting by either. Like, we're seeing some of these quarterbacks that are aging in years, like Aaron Rodgers, like he's not impressing. He's not wowing you. Like, he's doing what needs to get done to potentially get the Steelers to the playoffs. Matt Stafford is putting himself in the MVP consideration at 37 years old. He'll be 38 around the same time the Super Bowl is, if the Rams could make it that way. I mean, this is a guy going back, I don't know, hopefully you were born here. He was drafted in 2009, Nick. He was the first overall pick. I'm pretty sure you were around then. But
I was, yeah.
Yeah. Either way, Matt Stafford's insane. But Drake May, you talk about the AFC East. Josh Allen, what he did last year, winning MVP. You could have you could have easily two of the best quarterbacks, and you might be able to make the conversation that you have the two best quarterbacks in the same division for the next decade. Insane.
I can't believe what Drake May has become for the Patriots, and I don't want this to just become a Patriots conversation. We're going to get to a few other candidates as well, but just really quickly, like what the Patriots have been able to do, bringing in Diggs, bringing in Travion Henderson, which we didn't really know, what he was going to be out of Ohio State, I believe. Just an absolute weapon for the Patriots this season. And then Will Campbell, like all the moves that the Patriots are making right now seem to be working out. And the Drake May one, I'm going to be honest, like when we grabbed Mac Jones, it just felt like, this doesn't feel like the right move. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the way he walked up to the stage, but it just didn't feel right. Drake May definitely feels right. And I'm so glad that it's panning out, because you take a swing like that at 3, like it kind of has to work out. You didn't trade up. You just sat there. And you got a guy like, if he's already in MVP conversations in year 2, no, I did not expect this at all. But I'm very, very happy. Even if he doesn't win it, like he's bringing the Patriots success. So I am completely thrilled.
Stafford was the number 1 overall pick. Speaking of another number 1 overall pick, this was in 2017. Myles Garrett. I mean, we talk about MVP award, and usually quarterbacks are the first to come to mind. I think rightfully so. Obviously, it's the most important position in the world of NFL or college football, or just the general in sports of football. But Myles Garrett, what he's doing this year should put him in consideration for the MVP award. He has 20 sacks on the season already. He still has 4 games left. The sack record is 22.5, set by J.J. Watt. If he can do this, if he can do it before the 3rd game of the season, obviously not talk about that extra game, that's even more impressive. Like, imagine if he did it next week, where he did it with only 15 games or 14 games instead of the 17, and which is absolutely possible. The Browns are starting to show a little bit of signs of life with Shedeur Sanders, we talked about yesterday, as the quarterback. And he decided to stay long-term, Myles Garrett, to stick around with the Browns franchise. He got paid, and he's letting them show that he's for real. He has 20 sacks. ESPN Logistics are projecting him to finish the season with 26 sacks on the year. I don't know if he gets that far. I don't know if he gets there, but with 4 games left, does he get 6 sacks? That sounds possible. I would say he gets to 24, 25. If that's the case, he deserves to be in the MVP conversation.
I mean, he deserves to be in the conversation, but I guess I just ask, what is the MVP to you? Because I think that's a little bit of an ambiguous award. It's kind of like what the Heisman's become. Like, what are you looking for when you say he's the MVP? Like, is he actually the most valuable player? Is he the best player on their team? Because the Browns are 3-10. So I hate to be that guy, but and what he's doing is absolutely incredible. I am not taking anything away from the amount, unreal. But the Browns are at the bottom of the AFC North at 3-10. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying they have to be at 11-2, but I don't think being 3-10 is like, the argument is that he's the most valuable player on their team, and in that case, there's not a win, tied to that. That's why I ask, like, what exactly are you looking for here?
If I was a voter, I'm completely on board with you. Yeah, the most valuable player is the most valuable to your team that's helping you win games. And that's why you normally see the MVP race given to a quarterback of a team that is in the playoff hunt or doing something very good, like what we saw with Josh Allen last year, what we've seen with Patrick Mahomes in the past, Aaron Rodgers in the past. All those teams were in the playoffs. Peyton Manning, all those teams were playoff teams. Yeah, I think Myles Garrett more has the chance of just winning Defensive Player of the Year, and that makes a lot of sense. But I still think he deserves MVP votes. I don't think he's going to get it. On the flip side, we talked about the Rams on how important that team has been, how wild the NFC West has been. Jackson Smith-Njigba, what he has done, JSN, on the receiving end, he's on pace for a record-setting year as well. He's on pace for 2,000 yards. We were talking about records for receivings. Calvin Johnson had 1,164 yards in 2012. I don't know if you remember 2012, but yeah, that was a great year. And JSN is on pace to do that in year 1 of Sam Darnold, in year 1 without DK Metcalf, in year 1 of basically the new system under Clinton Kubiak for the Seattle Seahawks. I think you could make the consideration that JSN is considered the most valuable player on the Seahawks and helping them get wins for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's been unbelievable. And I will say 2012, great year. 2016 might top it if you're asking me. It's definitely up there, but 2012 was also a very good year. I don't know where to land on this, especially with the history of, Cooper Kupp, Triple Crown. I would love to see JSN really flourish and get a ton of MVP votes. It's so hard for a wide receiver to do that because the quarterback is the one giving them the ball, and the quarterback can throw to other guys too. So like if one wide receiver is seeing just a ridiculous amount of success, they kind of need the rest of their team to fail to be that guy to show how valuable they are. They're always going to be, conversations of like, well, it's the scheme. Well, it's the quarterback. I'm not saying JSN doesn't deserve it, but wide receivers in general just have a very steep hill to climb because there are so many other factors. Do you think he can overcome some of that? Do you think he needs to pick up production over the last few weeks? Does there need to be like a quote unquote Heisman play, one standout catch or touchdown or game winner or whatever that puts him over the edge? Or do you think he's good where he's at?
I think he's going to receive votes, but I don't think he's going to be close. I think it's going to come down to, honestly, I think it's going to come down to May and Stafford. That's just how it is. Look, in 2012, I just looked it up when you were talking. In 2012, when Calvin Johnson broke the record for most receiving yards, he wasn't even in the AP voting. And it wasn't even two quarterbacks either. If you remember, it was Adrian Peterson and Peyton Manning back then.
Peterson. Oh, what a pull. Not even like
Calvin Johnson
ball knowledge, but man,
check this out. They didn't even care about Offensive Player of the Year. Calvin Johnson finished 4th in Offensive Player of the Year voting the year he broke the record. Adrian Peterson, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady surpassed him for the AP Offensive Player of the Year. Yeah. So
that's what that is. That's an instant of people not being. They just let greatness fly. They just didn't even witness what was right in front of their eyes.
But what team was Calvin Johnson on? Those Lions teams weren't very good. It goes back to your conversation.
They were literally running press punt coverage on Calvin Johnson, and people just like assumed he'd be around forever. I'm upset that he came in 4th. That's a little rude.
Let's switch over topics here because I have a question to ask you. Are we watching the end of college football as we know it and the birth of corporate college football? I mean, going from dorm rooms to boardrooms. That's what I really want to know here, because there has been a report, Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, University of Utah is nearing a landmark private equity deal expected to generate $500 million. And this is insane to me. I'm looking at this. They're a first of its kind private equity partnership, what's called Atoro Capital. It's a New York-based investment firm going to be talking with Salt Lake City, with Utah. The deal would create a separate for-profit entity called Utah Brands and Entertainment, LLC. That company would effectively spin out the athletic department into a business, which is co-owned by the university and the private equity firm. This is basically turning into saying, hey, instead of or on top of more of the NIL deals that you're about to get with the rev share with the $20.5 million that Utah and the rest of the college football teams, college athletic teams are going to get, you're going to be able to also get this thing where you can make money off the money that you're giving the state university here. Insane. Absolutely insane. What do you think about all this?
Look, this college football is just the biggest mess I've ever seen, probably in any sport ever. There's so much confusion. There is so much unregulation. Like there's just so much chaos, mayhem. Generally speaking, that's good. That's good. Like when we go into an NCAA, March Madness tournament, and it's not going to be probably the Final Four is going to be 1 seeds. Like that's good. That's chaos. That's what we want as sports fans. We don't want this kind of chaos. This is not the right kind of chaos. This is
chaos.
This is a disaster for college football. And if this goes through, this is the end of college football as we know it. Period. It will not be the same. It will be semi-pro sports because this is effectively making Otro Capital and all of the investors that they invited to join into Otro Capital and buying this Utah Brands and Entertainment LLC. They're part owners. That's like, it's not the same, but I kind of said it's like the Packers, right? They've got this plethora of owners that are supplying money towards them running their program. It's like if, Robert Kraft had like an ownership group. That's kind of what this is. Now, Utah, the university, they kind of split their soul to make this Utah Entertainment and Brands and Entertainment LLC because that portion was kind of like something that happened internal. They just separated it to external and then sold off a portion of it. So Utah does still have majority ownership of that company. They still make all the decisions. But this you know, they say this is a slippery slope. This is jumping off the cliff. This is not a just like minor step. This is going to cause problems down the road because $500 million. What, Colorado's in $27 million debt from last season? Or no, that's for this season. Ohio State looking at nearly 38 from last season is what I've seen reported. Utah got ahead of the curve. None of these universities want to be in debt. None of them want to be in debt. They want to be making money. And if Utah is able to get ahead of it this way, what's stopping literally every other university from doing the same? Now every university is partially owned by private equity and ownership groups. It's not college football anymore. We have to let go of the idea that it's college football, because if this goes through, it's nowhere near what it was.
Yeah, you brought slippery slope into mind. That's exactly what I was thinking until you said it. And what came to mind is, you know, those crazy things you see on social media of people going down these crazy waterfalls. Some of them become AI as well too. Everything's AI these days, where they go down and they're not even touching the slide because it's straight down. That's exactly what's happening with Utah here, because you're right. Like, this is the start of it. This is just going to open the door. If Utah, I mean, like, we're not talking like Notre Dame. We're not talking Ohio State. We're not talking the top tiers in college athletics. We're talking about Utah, and there's no disrespect there, but they're not in the same tier. They're just not to the other names I talk about, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, you know, those kind of Florida States. Remember this Florida State almost did the same thing with I think Dubai or Saudi Arabia or something a few years ago. But now this is the first actual university to actually do it. And you're right. They do have the majority ownership, so they still make control of their schedule, coaching, athletic operations. I think you'd have to make that happen. I mean, could you imagine the NCAA or whoever the new governing body becomes at some point, because the NCAA isn't always going to be around. I know that's the case. What they would allow, you know, could you like say, well, somebody's going to answer your schedule? No. And the university can actually repurchase the capital stakes back in 5 to 7 years too. So this could be all the university's deal in 7 years. This could raise more than $500 billion. This is just starting off at $500 billion at a private equity deal. This is insane. And
is this good for the sport, in your opinion?
No way. This is could be first. This is the first deal that's going to happen here. It's by far likely the last. What I am more interested in is what happens first. Do more universities follow suit, or do we see entire conferences jump on things like this?
I don't know. I think it'll be universities, to be honest. Just because you're looking at like it is such a treacherous world right now with what NIL is, right? And what it was, where boosters, individual people could put money into collectives, and then that was, you know, divvied up to the players, and now there's rev share. So each university is essentially required. I'm saying required because if they want to be competitive, they have to do this. They don't actually have to do this. This is optional, but they can spend up to 20.5. That's the market cap, $1 million on their roster, but they can't exceed 20% of athletically generated revenue for the year. For a school like Iowa State, like that's pretty close to 20%. Like there are schools out there where they're going to hit 20% before they hit $20.5 million. How are they going to compete? This is a great opportunity for those schools to be like, yeah, well, we can't really generate that much revenue right now. But if we do this, take a gamble, bring in a ton of talent, start winning like crazy national championships, we're going to have the money where we don't have to worry about the 20%. Like that's like, we're going to be 5% with $20.5 million, especially with like, you know, then as they become more successful, there will become other donors, because now it's businesses, not donors, businesses pay athletes as well as the rev share are paying athletes. The whole system is totally whack. But if you're asking conferences versus universities, it's going to be universities. I mean, the conferences need to do something, but the universities are going to look out for themselves, and they can take a gamble this way. They can, you know, further separate themselves from others in this way. Like Utah just made a huge jump in the Big 12. Like we were talking about what Texas Tech was doing.
Not just Big 12, not just Big 12. This is $500 million. This is a countrywide jump for Utah.
Yes. Like this is not, I think people are going to see this and they're going to see private equity, and they're going to see 500 million, and they're going to see Utah, and they're going to say, I don't really know what any of that is. I'm just going to move on. Like, what does this even mean? And if they know what private equity is, they'll probably become concerned. But they'll like, I saw this and I was like, what is this even about? When you get into what this is, the actual logistics, and then what this means, this is maybe the worst possible thing for college football. And I hate to say that. I just like, I don't know what could be worse.
I know we're talking college football here, but this is an entire college athletic conversation. But
Yeah.
I mean, obviously football leads the way with this. But like in a decade or two, what are we looking at here? Are we looking at like college football being more treated like a minor league professional sport? Like what are we talking here with the crazy things with NIL, with transfer portal? We've already seen some of these schools, take away the Pac-12. Obviously what happened there with the media deals and how that went going. That's one thing that comes to mind. But we're already seeing certain schools, 135 FBS schools right now. There's only probably 50 and that's probably being very liberal with that number, that actually can compete for a national championship. Like at the beginning of the season, somebody say, well, they might have a chance. 50 is probably the number of the 130. And then you have G5 schools that are still in the college football playoffs, but you're not going to be seeing James Madison get $500 million in a private equity deal. You're not going to be seeing Tulane do that, right? This is going to be the death of how we see college athletics right now. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt. This is crazy. There's a lot more we need to talk about this in the future because this is not the end.
This is not good either. No.
Well, the college football playoffs are right over the hill. Right over the hill. Playoffs? You want to talk about playoffs? I think we should talk about playoffs. And one thing we should talk about is why isn't anyone talking about Oklahoma ahead of the college football playoffs? I feel like we've heard about every other team heading into this first week that's going to happen next week after the Army-Navy game, after a couple bowl games begin. The first week of the college football playoffs. Everyone's talking about Alabama. Should they have made it or not? Everybody's talking about Miami. Should they have made it or not? Everybody's talking about the two G5 teams. Should they have made it or not? Nobody's talking about Oklahoma. I have not seen one article written about Oklahoma for the college football playoffs. And this is a team that is going to host Alabama in round one. This is a team that already beat Alabama in the regular season. Why are we not talking about Brett Venables? Why are we not talking about John Mateer? Why are we not talking about the Oklahoma Sooners?
I mean, when you look at their schedule, at 10-2 losses to Texas, pretty bad loss, actually, 23-6 final score, and a loss to Ole Miss, 34-26. Other than that, like, they don't really have a ton of controversy here. They beat a number 15 Michigan, 24-13. They beat a 4 Alabama. They beat a ranked Missouri, which whether or not they're ranked or not at 22, Auburn was ranked, like whatever you want to get into there. But those are 2 more ranked wins for this team. Why is nobody talking about them? Just because in comparison, they don't have as much controversy right now. Do I love that? This should be one of the most controversial teams. We shouldn't have to worry about all this other crap going on, but we do. All right. And that's the reason nobody's talking about them. Whether or not I think they have a shot at beating Alabama, absolutely I do. I think that they're going into this like as a dark horse, if you will, because nobody's really talking about them. They can focus on the inside. They can worry about this game. You said they host, right? Like if you want to pull up the bracket, that'd be great.
Yeah,
so I
in
can
Norman.
see who they're going into. And Norman's going to help as well. Yeah, so then they'll go straight into Indy because that's a true bracket, isn't it? That's not a reseeding.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so then they'll face Indy, and I think don't sleep on OU, right? Like that's where I'm at right now with this team. I'm not saying that they're going to go out, dominate Alabama, that they're going to, squeak by Indiana. I'm not saying that. I think Oklahoma's been good, and they've won some games, like the Michigan game, really opened a lot of people's eyes to what this team could be. But I really think the reason no one's talking about it is just because there are more important things to talk about. I don't think it's anything against this team, which is, gives them an opportunity to focus. But at the same time, it's just, I don't know. It's a byproduct of this system being so bad, I guess.
Yeah, the Ole Miss game, that was a tough game for Oklahoma. Obviously, that was one that really kind of showed some weaknesses for them. The Texas game, though, if you remember, that was John Mateer coming back from injury, and he probably shouldn't have returned back. But the fact that it was Red River rivalry, the fact that they wanted him to play in that one, of course, that's why that one got pretty bad. And he honestly, if you would have had not John Mateer in that game, and you had your backup, it might have been a little different. And not saying anything against John Mateer. He just wasn't 100% healthy. He threw 3 interceptions in that game. He was not ready to come back. and that's why they lost that game 23-6. I know that I don't hold that one against them too much. A loss is still a loss, don't get me wrong, but when I look at their resumes, I remember that, saying, well, that game, it's not really what Oklahoma was. The
Yeah.
Ole Miss loss, that was a loss. That Bama win, though, was impressive. And the fact that they're going to play that again, we all know it's very hard to beat a team twice, though. And they have to play Alabama again. That's what just happened in the SEC championship. Alabama beat Georgia in the regular season, and look what happened in the SEC championship. Georgia taking down Alabama with style, insane style. ESPN Analytics, check this out. Matchup predictor, the good old. I love looking at these. Looking at the stats. 50.9% Alabama, 49.1 Oklahoma, right down the middle. This is a game that we should be talking about so much, and no one's even bringing it up, other than the side saying, Alabama, do they deserve to be there or not? John Mateer was in the Heisman conversation for a very long time until he got hurt this season. Those 3 interceptions against Texas basically turned him out for good. This Brent Venables defense finally showing up. The conversation about Brent Venables, what he was going to be, as a head coach coming over from Clemson, coming over to Oklahoma, finally starting to show up. I think this might be, and this is the game on Friday night too. This is the standalone game. This opens the college football playoffs. This might be the best game of the first round.
That's what I was going to ask you, was how do you view this game in comparison to the rest of the field? Just looking at what happened last time, obviously a 2-point win, nearly 50-50 this next time. Wow. This next go at it. Ty Simpson had 326 yards passing, went 1 touchdown interception. John Mateer 138, 15-23 on the day. Not a lot of rushing in this game for either team. Neither team surpassed even 81 yards of rushing in this game, which was crazy. So maybe expect an air raid. I think this is one of the best games just because these teams match up so well. I think that this could be a really, really close game, could come down to the wire. When I think of like games that no one's really talking about or whatever, I always think back to the season. It would have been 2 years ago when Georgia and Florida State were both snubbed. And everyone thought they got it wrong. Everyone was upset with how it went. But then those first round games was Michigan, Alabama, I want to say, and Washington. Who was it? Washington, because Washington won. Texas, is that right?
Yeah.
Both of those games were incredible. Literally came down to the last play. I remember making a video about it because I was like, look, if the committee got it wrong, the committee got it wrong. But they didn't get it wrong as far as the quality of these games. They nailed these two matchups. This is one of those games that I view like, whether or not you want to be upset about Alabama, you want to be upset about the rest of the field, whatever, this game, we might just be in for an absolute treat. Like, do not miss this game. You're looking at maybe one of the better Oklahoma teams of all time. Alabama limping in, but a really tight matchup they're going to want to avenge from earlier this season. A 50-50 matchup prediction by ESPN. Like, what's not to love right here?
Yeah, we have a full week till we actually give our actual final predictions for the college football playoffs round 1. But you got an early thought on this one? Who are you leaning towards early, Oklahoma or Alabama?
Man, you're right. It is going to be a little while before these games go on. My initial thought right now is probably Alabama just because of momentum. But momentum kind of goes out the window when it's been that long from your last game, right? You play in the SEC championship game. Does that extra wear and tear hurt you? Like, there's a lot of factors to consider here.
Yeah, Kirby Smart said, hey, if you remember this, talking about Alabama and Georgia playing, like, this is technically our 9th conference game. This is something the SEC year is going to have to play every year now. Oklahoma didn't have to play. So Oklahoma has a whole extra week of time off because they didn't play in the SEC championship game. I want to lean towards Alabama. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to say really quick. I want to hear what you say, but the best thing you can do in college football right now is be really, really good, especially early on. Good enough to you're basically guaranteeing your spot, but then you don't play in the championship game because you don't have to play an extra game. You don't lose any ground from your seeding. That's the best spot you can be in. Obviously, Oklahoma found a really, really good neutral ground there. You said you were leaning Alabama?
I think that my mind wants to, but at the same point, I'm like, man, the fact that what we just led with today, we're not talking about Oklahoma. That's a chip on your shoulder. And although it's tough to beat the same team twice in 1 year, I feel like if anybody's going to do it in Norman, I think the Sooners can get that done.
Okay,
I'm excited. We're gonna do final. We'll do final score predictions next week. But man, I think Oklahoma.
We've got other things to talk about.
You're leaning Alabama this weekend. I'm leaning Oklahoma. This is right down the middle, just like ESPN Analytics did it. So it makes a lot of sense to get going. We got a lot more to talk about on here on Marv and Rauh in the morning. And let's continue on our college football talk because transfer portal is wide open. And the transfer portal is absolutely insane. It's going to be open in January for one time only, January 3rd. It's either the 3rd or 4th that opens up, closes on the 16th. And that's it. No spring portal. It's just one time only. That's it. And it's provocative. And what I got to say here.
What does that mean?
What I have to say here is that we've already seen a couple quarterbacks hit. We've already seen some impactful players that are going to hit the portal. First one that comes to mind, Arizona State Sam Leavitt heading into the transfer portal. That one's going to be wild. Auburn's Jackson Arnold didn't have the best Auburn year, but he's going to be looking for a chip on his shoulder. We just started talking about Oklahoma. He had a pretty good year at Oklahoma last year. I think one of the best quarterbacks in all of G5, Colton Joseph out of Old Dominion, is going to be a stud at the Power 4 level next year because he's definitely going to be on the Power 4 team and potentially could be a conference winning quarterback. That's how good I think he is. He's so electric. What are you taking from the transfer portal right now with some of the names you've heard that have already said they've gone in and maybe how it could change the landscape of college football next year?
I mean, I do think this is going to be an electric window just because you do only get the one now. There's no double dipping. There's no waiting until, kind of seeing how rosters develop. And then I'm going to jump in. We are seeing some pretty early commitment. And because these guys aren't technically in the portal to my understanding right now. They're just announcing hey, I plan to jump into the portal. Yeah. Because, we basically have, it's not quite a month at this point, being that it's the 10th. But we do have 3 weeks until we're in the portal. We got a ways. And so I wonder if this is a way for the players to kind of take a look at who's out there, where's, who's moving at least, not where they're necessarily going. I expect this portal to be chaos. This is going to be big for a few programs. I will say obviously Iowa State is on the top of my mind. We'll see what Jimmy Rogers is able to do as far as rebuilding or keeping guys and all of things of that sort. I expect Iowa State to lose a fair amount of players. We'll see. I will say signs are pointing in the right direction for Iowa State right now, but we'll see as it pans out. I'm not entirely sure that the transfer portal is in the exact right spot, but I do think we made a step in the right direction with it being one portal window. How do you feel about the way that they're running it this year as, in comparison to years past?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's in the right direction. I don't think it's perfect yet. I don't know if it's ever going to be perfect. It's such a tough thing to do. You're trying to put it in a spot to where most teams can only focus on that. You're not focusing on recruiting. You're not focusing on bowl games or college ball playoffs. But then you also have the most important part, which not many people think about in the sports realm, is making sure they have enough time to prepare and register for classes. Right? This is still college. This is still, this is something that people forget about, that they also have, to actually try and earn a degree, attempt at least, and they have to do all the things and to make sure that's happening. So I think it's in the right spot right now, at least for trying to switch it to a one window only. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. I think it's going to be a wild.
What is your opinion on the situation going on at Arizona State right now, with players being able to play in their bowl game, even if they're in the portal? Yes.
Love
it.
I'm glad we're on the same Dillingham page. Brought it up the other day, and they were discussing, the thought process. And of course, this all stemmed on the Sam Leavitt, his rumor of him expecting to enter the transfer portal. And he came out and said, he goes, look, if you were thinking about entering the transfer portal and you still want to game prep with us, you still want to be in the bowl game with us, that's fine, because this is the 2025 Arizona State football team. That transfer portal, that stuff is for 2026. He's we're talking about how they're in a weird window right now, and they absolutely are. I think he attacked that perfectly, and for multiple reasons. One, you want to make sure you had the most players available for your bowl game.
Player's move. That's a player's move,
right? And then also on the flip side, even if players are leaving your program, that shows that you are ready to have a relationship with that said player or any player in your organization until the day they leave. If you're a player that is in the portal from a different school, and you're considering a school like Arizona State, and you hear that saying, yeah, we'll have your back all the way up until the end, even if you decide to say that Arizona State's not the right choice for you anymore, why would you not want to go there? That sounds like a huge culture win for Arizona State. In a world of transfer portal where it's going to be wild, where they only have one window only. This isn't the same recruiting thing as a high school recruiting where you go and sit on their couch and talk to mama and talk about them for 30 minutes, and you text them every night for a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year. You talk them from being a sophomore all the way up until they say I commit and put your hat on National Signing Day. That's not like this with the transfer portal. You have about 10-day window to say, hey, I'm in the portal. Maybe look at a little bit of your tape, decide if you're a good culture fit, decide if you're a right pick for them, and then just say, hey, come register for classes. That's it. So if you can do these smaller things, to me, that was Kenny Dillingham speaking to the world. That was him saying, hey, if you're considering Arizona State, this is how I will treat you as a player until the day you are ready to leave this program. So I love it. I absolutely love what he said there.
Yeah, I think that that was the right answer. And I think that that's basically what I've heard from Kenny Dillingham is that he gets it. Like he's a level-headed guy. That's the right play. And not even just from like Arizona State being correct and him being a correct coach, like humans. That's probably like, it's not fair that they, like, whatever the reason is that they're leaving. Like, I'm sure that they can opt out if they want and not go to practice and stuff. Like they can do both as long as you allow them to do one of them. You have control over that situation. Another name that kind of popped up really quick as I was just doing some quick research, Nick Marsh, 2025, unbelievable receiver for Michigan State. Another name potentially to look out for. Is that a name that you're thinking could make waves in this portal? I mean, I do think this portal is going to be insane. Like there's going to be a ton of movement, but this is a name that at wide receiver I think could make noise.
Yep, I think he's insane. Yeah, I think that he's one of the big wide receivers. I'd be excited to see what Auburn's Horatio Fields does. I'd be excited to see what, a couple of the Perry Thompson from Auburn, a couple of wide receivers that, Auburn's receiving core, everybody talked about how talented that receiving core was, and they didn't really pan out this past year. So a couple of them are entering the portal. I think we're going to hear a couple other big names as well, but Nick Marsh definitely excites me. I wonder if he stays in the Big Ten. All right. The fact we've heard for years about Ohio State always getting the wide receivers, but their wide receiver coach, the one that was there for the long time, Brian Hartline, is now the new head coach at USF. So I wonder if he seals a couple, right? And so a lot of interesting things going on about that. Does he have the NIL budget to steal some wide receivers? Does the Alabama wide receiver coach, Jamarcus Shepard, who's now the head coach of Oregon State, go and chase some of these guys, right? So interesting things.
Well, that's what's so tough about this portal. Like you bring up, like, do you think Nick Marsh will stay in the Big Ten? No, I don't think so initially. That's my initial thought, right? And then you're like, well, Ohio State and this former wide receiver coach, but now he's at USF. Well, does Nick Marsh value that coaching experience? Because if he does, it's probably you can't have that and the NIL, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too, which is maybe my least favorite saying of all time.
Everything is so short-lived with this transfer portal. It helps a lot right now that they're expected to enter the portal because the agents are working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I think you have to rely on relationships because, as I mentioned, you're not being recruited for year in and year out since your sophomore season. Even if you decide to enter the portal now, at the very most, you have a month to talk to other teams to either decide where you're going for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years of your college career. And when you're talking about some of these bigger guys like a Marsh, like Sam Levitt, you're doing it to make sure you're ready to get the best spot so you can become an NFL player. So, this is tough to me. I think you have to value a lot of things. You have to put a lot of things forward, and relationships have to be one of the biggest priorities.
That's such an insightful, good work there, Christian. What a play. Because there's got to be those top guys at the very top. I would say Sam Levitt is in this conversation of like,
for sure,
they can go anywhere. Everybody knows who they are. A lot of schools probably want them. They're willing to pay for them to come play for them. Those guys, it's not as much about relationships. Like it's definitely about relationships, but money's involved as well. And this is what I alluded to earlier, not to make this an Iowa State conversation, but I do think Iowa State's definitely a team that could get stripped of a lot of players. So a lot of people are going to want to hear about Iowa State. Like, Iowa State being in the Midwest And Jimmy Rogers being at SDSU for as long as he was, and only spent a year out of Washington State, he's talked about he's recruited a lot of these guys. So a lot of the top tier talent that Iowa State has, I don't have an answer for. But the other guys, there is an existing relationship there. That's what I feel so good about. And to your point, those guys who are like third on the depth chart at offensive linemen or third on the depth chart at corner or safety or whatever, they don't have a ton of noise. They don't have a ton of film. Like they might leave to go to JMU, like Isaiah Alston did last year for Iowa State at wide receiver. Like there isn't a ton of guys who are deeper on the depth chart going from Iowa State to Ohio State. It's just not that common. I think the relationships portion is very, very big. And I think Iowa State actually has a good shot at retaining a lot of talent because of Jimmy Rogers being from the Midwest.
Rocco Beck, does he stay or does he go?
Right now, you want me to give you my opinion, my guess?
Yeah.
He stays. I think he stays.
Ooh.
Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm misreading the social media post, but I think he stays. And I think everyone in Iowa State Nation, as Cyclone Nation, is extremely excited. The question, I think, is if he stays and he beats Iowa next season, if Kyle Conradi stays and beats Iowa on a game-winning field goal next season, do they get statues outside of Jack Trice? Because I would be willing to donate to make that statue, man.
Interesting. You got cool with these statues talks, man. That's what you.
I know.
Cool
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, we're gonna have a field of statues out there at some point.
You know what? Transfer portal is going to be, dare I say, awesome, baby. And that's where I want to go next with the Jimmy V Classic, right? BYU on a buzzer beater, UConn with a statement win at Madison Square Garden. And I mean, this was a fun basketball last night. We got this on a Tuesday night, like basketball up till about almost 1 a.m. Eastern time. We had some good basketball. Let's start with BYU Clemson. This game was insane. Clemson had a 22-point lead at one point in this one, and BYU came all the way back, buzzer beater at the very end of the game, and it was one of the craziest buzzer beaters that I think I've seen in a very long time. Robert Wright III picked up the buzzer beater on this one, finished 17 points in this one. It was wild. What do you take from the BYU Clemson game?
Yeah, I was looking at this last night. Clemson made a free throw. Where is this at? It was okay. So Robert Wright made a 3-pointer at 6:59 left remaining in the first to put BYU to 22 points. At that point, it was tied. BYU went into the half with 22 points. So BYU did not score for the last 7 minutes of game time. And at the half, Clemson had a 97.7% chance of winning. So the fact that BYU came back and won this game was absolutely insane. On that final shot, I genuinely could not believe that was the shot they decided to take when they called timeout, brought it over half court. Like, I just couldn't believe that was the decision they ended up making. He ended up making it, which was awesome. And then when they played it back, it took the replay for me to be like, whoa, that was actually a really tough shot, like kind of falling away to put that ball on the right trajectory. Shout out to Robert Wright there, the third, with that shot, puts him to 17 points on the night. I think that this wasn't the game where we all realized this, but this was certainly a game on a national stage where AJ DeBanza can say, like, Big 12, look out. I'm going to come in. I'm going to make some noise. No game is officially over until the clock hits 0. Keba Keita, a problem. As an Iowa State fan, I remember how that went last year in those two games. Like Richie Saunders, Robert Wright, this BYU team, and I'm going to be honest here, like I just think the Big 12 is too loaded. I don't think this is the best team in the Big 12. I don't even know if this is in the top 5, but this just shows the depth of the Big 12 because this is a very good BYU team.
Yeah, this is insane that you could make the argument and not be wrong that this is probably, I'd say, the 4th best Big 12 team with Arizona, with Iowa State, with Houston in front of them. And they're insane. The 10th best team in the country. Their only loss right now is a 2-point loss to UConn, which we're going to get to in just a minute. And you can be like, yeah, I think they're only the 4th best team in their conference. Insane. Nuts. Absolutely insane stuff. I think that they are very good. This is not going to be the same year of college basketball where all the number 1 seeds make the tournament. There are just way too many good teams this year. We might be in the cusp of the best NCAA tournament we have ever seen. I think we might be like the Sweet 16. If there was not a single upset, which of course there's going to be, but like, could you imagine if the top 16 teams played each other to finish out this tournament? Like, that's how good how top heavy, but how good this entire field is this year. Like we were talking about the AP Top 25 yesterday's conversation, and there are so many good teams. We didn't even bring up BYU, and they reminded us why we should after that win against Clemson on Tuesday night. BYU right now ranked 10th. They get this win against Clemson. That probably doesn't help them in the standings because Clemson's not seen as a huge ranked team. But what they should be paid attention to is they can come back from a huge deficit and win basketball games. That is huge, especially when you're getting ready to play in Big 12 play. As we mentioned, right now seen as maybe the 4th best team in their conference, but still the 10th best in the country.
Yeah, I don't want to harp on this too long because I do want to get to the other game as well. That game was arguably better. It was a different game, right? Instead of a comeback, It was a tight game the entire way. But I wanted to bring this up. Shout out to my man, Ryan Hammer, arguably the best college football or basketball analyst out there with his invention of the trapezoid of excellence. He released his trapezoid of excellence as of 12/9 yesterday, and he was talking about the efficiencies that he's looking at right now. It was so hard for him to draw the boundaries on this trapezoid because we're seeing ridiculously high efficiencies. I believe there were like 4 teams or something like that over an adjusted efficiency rating of like 99. They were over 40 raw. It was ridiculous. And he said something about like this season, there's an unprecedented number. Last season, there were like 3 teams at this point at that mark. In the previous like 6 years, there were only 3 teams prior to that. So basketball in the last 2 years has gotten significantly better. So like BYU fans, if you're watching this, I am not saying that BYU is bad by saying that they're like lower in the Big 12. It's just that basketball this year is like off the charts. Everyone is ridiculously good right now. I can't wait to see what BYU does. I do think AJ DeBanza is going to be electric for this team. 9 to 10 from the free throw line, something I think a lot of people are, overlooking just because of everything else that went down in this one. 28 points. Unbelievable effort from BYU. What were your thoughts on the UConn-Florida game? Because you brought this up. You brought up UConn. This is the last 3 national championships on the same floor, tight the entire way. Florida falls to 5-4 too. But what did you think here?
Yeah, first, that's crazy that Florida falls to 5-4. Now, with the exception of the TCU game, most of them are really quality losses, and those matter. Those definitely matter. I mean, they lost to Arizona, they lost to Duke, they lost to UConn, all top 5 teams in the country at the moment. The only one that really sucks is that TCU lost. So let's keep that in mind. We'll get to more of Florida in a minute, but UConn, I think they proved, when you're trying to talk about the Mount Rushmore of who the best 4 teams in the country are right now, UConn wasn't in that conversation. I think they're going to try and kick their way through it and make themselves be seen as a team that belongs as one of the top teams in the country right now. Them sitting at 5 almost seems a little disrespectful. That's how crazy it is. They already have a loss on their belt. That's why you couldn't make them any higher. When you look at how they actually perform, this team could be seen as one of the best in the country. And I'm not talking 5. I'm talking higher than that. I think they could compete with a Duke. They could compete with Iowa State, Michigan, Arizona. Although, I really do think that's the case. They lost Arizona this year, but they did it without Terrace Reed Jr. Terrace Reed Jr. comes back, and he wasn't 100%. He still had 12 points in this game. He still shot 5 for 10 from the field. He only played 24 minutes, but he was just having him out there is huge. And just having him back is absolutely huge. And let me just say this. I don't think I have ever seen a better Euro step in a college basketball game than at the end of this one with Malachi Smith. Him coming off the bench, he had 9 assists, by the way. But the Euro step he had at the end of the game was absolutely incredible. I think you need to start paying attention to UConn, although they might be seen as just the 5th best team in the country because they have a 1 loss. When you look at the rest of their schedule for a little bit, they have to play Texas. They got Butler. That's really it until they wind up playing Seton Hall and Villanova later on in Big East championship play or Big East conference play. This is a team that can make a deep run, and don't be shocked if they're a number 1 seed come tournament in March.
I mean, I was impressed with UConn. I thought Caravan put together a lot of really solid, possessions offensively and defensively. 2 blocks out there and a steal as well. Just look at some defensive stats, 2 rebounds on the defensive side of the floor. Solo ball impressed me. Obviously, you mentioned that Euro step from Malachi Smith. Can we also just take for literally 0.2 seconds? That atmosphere for this game was
MSG was wild. It was wild.
Through the screen, I was like, oh my gosh. For a neutral floor too, it was unreal.
It felt like a tournament game in December.
It did. It was,
And this
it
is
was
perfect for the game
insane.
of college basketball, like, because for the longest time, this has definitely changed this year, and you could say it's not the first year it's changed, but this is the first year I've really paid more attention to it, that when college football is still happening, you normally aren't paying too much attention to college basketball because of that overlap. You're usually still all in on the college
You're just
football
waiting.
because of the postseason play, things like that. And usually that's when some of these teams are playing their cupcakes, they're playing their buy-in games, all that stuff like that. Not this year. Not this year. We had the Players era. We have the Jimmy V Classics. We have a team, like you mentioned, the national champions, Florida, already losing to 3 teams inside the AP top 5,
Yeah.
and they haven't even got to SEC play yet. This is going to be a wild season, Nick.
Yeah, well, and to that point, you said keep your eye on UConn. I think that this game and the BYU game as well opened up my eyes to like this, the top 4 I think are very, very good. Like Duke, Arizona, Michigan, Iowa State. I don't think I was wrong in saying that those 4 teams are just on another level right now. But them being on another level doesn't make any of these teams not worth watching because
Yeah.
it is such a deep field this year. Like, yeah, BYU probably not in that conversation with those top 4. I don't think a lot of BYU fans would disagree with me by me saying that. But also, I'm not going to say that BYU's out of the running for the Big 12. Like, they're still an unbelievably good team. They string together a few good wins, get an upset. All of a sudden, look at what we're looking at. And in the tournament, too, like, that's a totally different situation.
Right.
UConn playing in the Big East, like, I know I kind of discredited the Big East a few, I think it was yesterday that we talked about this, and that's just me. I'm going to stand by that a little bit. I think it's a much easier schedule than the Big 12, but they're going to get an opportunity to build a bunch of momentum ahead of the NCAA tournament. They might become a 1 seed, maybe 2 seed, and they'll go in and they're going to beat teams because they are a very good team. This is going to be an unbelievable year of college basketball. I don't know how else to say this than like if you even remotely like sports or basketball, like how I'm like a sports guy, like I would watch baseball. That's you had to be at that level or higher. Turn on every game you can this season because I do think this will be a historic season of college basketball.
It's awesome, baby. Perfect way to end it. I
Anything
love
is
it.
possible.
Jimmy V Classic. I love it. I love it. Absolutely. Both of these teams are going to be teams that we see make deep runs in the NCAA tournament. Even Florida. I think Florida might be like the most dangerous 4 seed in the tournament after some of these losses. They probably won't get the overall 1 seed or whatever like that. So even if they wind up doing some crazy stuff in SEC play, could you imagine the national championship Florida team after this, how crazy this is? Like, yeah, right now we see them only as the 20th best team in the country. That's how good you have college basketball this year, folks.
You're
Let's
exactly
get on
right.
out of here. Thank you so much for listening to Marv and Rauh in the morning, bringing your daily hot takes every morning, covering all the sports. We'll be back here tomorrow with another episode real soon. Next, let's get on out of here.
I'll see you tomorrow morning.